Hey everyone, in this video, what I want to walk you through is the concept of having pop-ups that only appear for the user under a basic set of conditions. So let's say that you're welcoming a user to your application for the first time, and you want them to either accept a set of terms and conditions, or you want to make sure that they populate some profile information before they can actually access certain features within your application. This tutorial is going to walk you through how to get that set up. So let's go ahead and take a look at this application that I already have a little bit of work done in. So basic thing here is that I'm on the index page of the application. I have a sign up login group here, which will, once a user signs up, they'll be redirected to a basic portal within the application. Now, on that page, we'll want to show them a pop-up that makes them complete a little bit more information before they can proceed. So let's think about how we get that set up. So one of the first things that you can do when you're designing your application is to use flags on the user profile. And what exactly do I mean by a flag? Let's go ahead and hop over to the data tab and explore what that might look like. So a flag is something that we might use as a yes or no value, or what you can call a Boolean condition. So we may look and say, has the user accepted their terms and conditions, or is the user a fully populated profile? So typically when I'm creating these fields, what I'll do is I'll put a prefix of is in front of it. So in this case, what we might illustrate is a concept called have they accepted the terms of service? So we'll call this is terms accepted. And of course, we can add in as many of these types of fields as we want, but it's good to kind of keep them to a reasonable amount. So now I've created that field for is terms accepted. So this will be added to all of our users. But one of the things that I want for this field is that every time a user account is created, I want this to have a default value. So I always want it to be no unless it's changed. So there are two ways that I could go about doing that. Either first, I could go to the actual sign up login element here, and when my user is created, I could also add a field here that says for that is terms accepted. I could set that to no. But of course, I'm having to build that in every part of the workflow every time that that sort of thing exists. Or what I could do just here is to set a default value of false. And when I set this default value, what happens is that when I'm creating a new object of this type, whether it's a user or whether it's a view event or whatever it may be within my application, um, what is going to happen is that Bubble is first going to look and say, what are the data fields that you're providing an input for? And then if you've specified any sort of default values, Bubble is going to go back and look and say, hey, wait a minute, do you have any, for any of the things where you didn't provide a value for us, is there a default that you want us to insert into the cell here so that you actually have that data point? So by choosing false here, it's automatically going to apply that to everything, which is great, makes life a whole lot easier. So now we have that data field here. So when our user signs up, they will have that condition put on there. But let's go ahead and put in a action that directs them over to this dashboard page. So now when they sign up, they'll be logged into there. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and add that to our login condition as well. And now let's navigate over to that dashboard page. So on this page, I've already created a pop-up here. So this is a basic pop-up for that our user will see when they're accessing the application for the first time, and we want them to accept those terms of service. So what we can do here is first, with this basic pop-up, what we want to do is to restrict it so that the user can't just click off somewhere on the page and the pop-up disappears. So the way we do that is to just click this button that says this pop-up can't be closed by pressing escape. And we probably also shouldn't have a button on here that also closes the pop-up. So let's get rid of that. Okay, so now the user is going to be forced to see this pop-up. But how do we actually have this pop-up show when the user is accessing the application and that condition is true? So what we can do is just add an event here that will say it's when the page is loaded, we will show that pop-up. Okay, so show pop-up narrow here. And so great. So this pop-up is now going to show up every single time that the page is loaded. And that isn't necessarily what we want. Rather, we want this to show up only when a certain condition is met. So what we'll say is this pop-up only shows up when the current user's is terms accepted is no or is false. So this will only appear under that condition. So great. So the user accesses our application for the first time, and that's what they're going to see. So let's go ahead and give that a test. And let me just go back over the index page here. We'll go ahead and sign up, and I'll do. All right. So, and let's go ahead and see what happens here. Okay, it looks like we were redirected to our dashboard there, and this pop-up appeared. Great. So we've been able to successfully set up an account here. Now, the thing is, we need to set up some logic to change our condition. So, and just to show you, I'm clicking off on the other areas, and that pop-up isn't going away. So let's go back into our dashboard here and actually set up some of our workflow logic. So with this, maybe we want to make a couple of quick changes about the user. So we'll say make changes to current user, and we have those fields that we want to populate. So we'll capture their first name, we'll capture their profile image, and we will use that terms accepted field based on our pop-up logic there. So let's go ahead and just fill these in real quick. And so picture uploader A, and then finally for our terms accepted, we're going to say when checkbox I agree to the terms is checked, we're going to record its value there. So, and if it is checked, that's going to update our value to yes. So, and what we can say is this is only possible when checkbox is checked. So, and if we wanted to, we could also set for our submit button there to say that this button isn't clickable when checkbox isn't checked. So let's go ahead and just put that on there. All right, so now let's go ahead and test our application here. And we can just refresh from here because we already have an account. Nothing's really changed there. So now, and let me go ahead and turn on the debugger here. Okay, so let's turn on step by step so we can see what happens when we go through this process. So let's just go ahead and type in a name here. I'll go ahead and leave the picture empty for the moment, but let's go ahead and check the agree to terms. Oh, and also let's try actually clicking this button and seeing what happens when we try and we don't have our button clicked there. So we tried clicking and our condition failed, so we can see that because our only when is in red. And if we want to further look into that, we can see the reason it's failing is because the box wasn't checked. So, okay, now, and of course, if we wanted this to work a little bit better, we could format the submit button so that that it might be grayed out when the condition isn't met. So let's go ahead and check the box, and now let's try running our workflow. So great, now notice that it turned to green, and our values here are going to have changed. So our is accepted has turned to yes. All right, and of course we didn't have a hide condition there, so that was one of the things that we're missing on that pop-up, but I hope you're able to follow along with me. And so we'll just add that for the next time that the page loads. So, and so now now that we have the step-by-step, let's say we're reloading this page again, our user's coming back to the application. it's going to run through that logic for saying, should we display this pop-up? And right now it's saying, since the terms accepted is no, because our previous workflow changed that, it's not going to show the pop-up. So now our user will come to the application and they won't get that message anymore. So, and of course, if something changed, or like say you change the terms of service and you want the user to see that message again, that's a way that you can get this pop-up to display. So this is a type of logic that you can use throughout your application. So whether that's for managing a subscription like a news service may, for accessing articles and you're keeping track of how many articles have been viewed in a month, or you want to communicate some new features and you want to make sure that the user is aware and they've seen these sort of things. You might have also noticed this as an action within Bubble, where when they launch new features, you get your little gift icon in the upper bar of your development environment. It's a really great feature to be able to know how to build these sort of things in your application. And I look forward to hearing about what types of things that you're able to build with it. So otherwise, happy building.